Coming up, why a judge this week forces Kansas City to place Clay Chastain's 3-year-old light rail plan on the November ballot. Could you be voting on streetcars and light rail at the same time? Plus 20 years of the shuttlecocks at the Nelson. And the Koch brothers of Kansas, are they being unfairly blamed for everything?
Our majority leader believes two men, Charles and David Koch, are a main cause of climate change. What?
The New York Times this week examined some of the positive contributions the Kochs have made to the Sunflower State. Welcome everyone, I'm Nick Haynes. Those stories and more coming up on the program that goes beyond the soundbite and takes you behind the headlines, making news in Kansas City, dissecting the week's top stories. Star columnist, UMKC journalism professor, and the host of Up to Date on KCUR-FM, Steve Kraske. From 41 Action News, Garrett Hake is with us. From The Pitch, reporter Steve Vokrot. And Kansas City Star political reporter, columnist and blogger Dave Helling. Now, is it conceivable that you'll be voting on light rail and streetcars all at the same time this year? Well, this week a Jackson County Circuit Court judge rules that a 3-year-old plan by maverick transit activist Clay Chastain to bring light rail to Kansas City should go before voters, though the judge rules that the city should write the ballot language. Does that mean voters could be weighing up light rail or streetcars or both this November, Dave Helling?
Well, what it does guarantee, I think, is at some point a trip back to court to sort of sort all of this out. But it is likely that the council will put something on the November ballot. They may go back to the Supreme Court, but you do get the sense, talking to people, that they're trying to craft some language that sort of accomplishes what they want to do, which is to shoo people away from the Clay Chastain proposal, and at the same time make him happy enough to accept whatever language they come up with. We'll just have to see how that unfolds.
Clay Chastain happy with this ruling?
Probably not. It's sort of a perfectly Solomonic decision to split the baby in which nobody's happy, because the city can craft the language and set it up in such a way that it's sort of an obvious B choice or no choice at all to the streetcar proposal that will likely be on that same ballot.
Do you think the city, though, would make this look at the worst type of proposal possible, because they now obviously they didn't want to put it on the ballot in the first place, that they will make it look as worse as they possibly can, Steve Vokrot?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And I almost kind of wonder if it would be better to have some perhaps outside disinterested party like the Secretary of State's office vet how this language is going to turn out.
Just to make it as independent as possible, how about the Kansas Secretary of State, Chris Kobach?
Well, I'm sure he would be up for it, actually. But, you know, the city kind of got itself into this mess. And, you know, part of the problem, too, is that Clay Chastain's plan, you know, while it is more expansive than what's being proposed in the streetcar, his funding his math has never really added up. He's always, you know, the latest scheme I saw included an assumption that there would be $200 million in private financing that would come from businesses that would contribute. And if you ask Clay, well, do you have any commitments? He says, no, but of course, these businesses should want to because my plan's so good for the city. Well, I just don't know if that really makes sense.
But he did get the signatures to put it on the ballot. The city refused to do so. This should go now on the ballot, shouldn't it, Steve?
Well, yes.
And the judge says yes.
It should go on the ballot. It's going to go on a ballot at some point here. If the city was smart, Nick, it would sort of end this argument by putting up language that satisfies Clay Chastain. And maybe, here's a solution, put Clay's name in the proposal. Clay would love it. He likes to see his name in ink. Do that. Let the citizens know this is Clay's proposal as contrasted with the city's proposal. So let the city vote this thing up or down on a real clean basis, stop the court fights, and end this thing, perhaps, hopefully, probably not, once and for all.
Is it possible that voters, if they said yes to this, that we would have to fund a light rail system and streetcars expansion at the same time, Dave?
Let's pay close attention to the timing here, Nick, because there are actually two votes on streetcar, one in August, one in November. The August vote would establish the district. November then, if the district is established, would be the tax increases. If you talk to insiders involved with streetcar, they are terrified that the August vote on the transportation sales tax in Missouri will negatively affect the first vote on establishing the streetcar district. If voters in Kansas City in August reject that district, then the only thing on the November ballot would be the Clay Chastain proposal. That makes the politics even more complicated, because then mass transit supporters might go to the Chastain proposal, and then things get very sticky very quickly.
And that makes light rail more attractive, doesn't it, Garrett?
Well, it might, but then the city's on the hook to sort of close all those holes that Steve pointed out in terms of how to fund it. So you might think it's a great proposal, but the math isn't there, and sort of being left holding the bag if something like that were to pass without solving all those math problems is a real danger.
Steve.
It is a mess for the city, though, if this does get passed, because then are they confronted with having for a second time reject something that the voters have approved. And, in talking to a lot of Kansas Cityans, whether you agree with streetcar or not, there are some people who are upset about the way the Downtown Transportation Development District got drawn up in such a way that they knew it would pass. And there's a lot of people who feel like city government is trying to do things as an end around to the public.
But to be real clear here, the city cannot afford both light rail and streetcar. That is a non-starter. The city can't go that way. The money simply isn't there. So how that would shake out in that eventuality, Nick, who knows? And that's a real mess for the city.
Are they being unnecessarily blamed for everything? I'm talking about the Koch brothers of Kansas, the industrialists and businessmen behind Wichita-based Koch Industries, the nation's second largest privately owned company, involved in everything from oil and chemicals to paper. Kansas Senator Pat Roberts recently took to the floor of the Senate to say he thinks they are being unfairly faulted for everything wrong in America.
Our majority leader believes two men, Charles and David Koch, are a main cause of climate change. What is that all about? And just yesterday, the majority leader blamed the Kochs for the wildfires in California. The wildfires in California. What's next? Maybe the Kochs are to blame for the planes lost in the Bermuda Triangle.
Well, this week, the New York Times went to Wichita to take a closer look at the influence of the company, which, despite all the negative press, has its fans who view the Kochs as a valuable, compassionate contributor.
I would be hard-pressed to find two things that are more important to this community than Koch Industries and Shocker Basketball.
They could be anywhere, but we're awfully proud they're here.
We're sitting in Charles Koch Arena, okay? This place is beautiful, and I can show you around a little bit. They put a nice chunk of change into this building. Look at this, Charles Koch Arena. This was all Koch.
Okay, that's just some of the projects that Koch Industries has been involved in the Wichita area. And I have to tell you, when KCPT recently announced it was putting Ruckus on hiatus, one viewer asked me, was it because of the Koch brothers' influence? Steve, I mean, people are looking for all sorts of reasons to be mad at this company. But clearly, in many parts of Kansas, this is a company that is viewed of as a very compassionate industry, and these are compassionate people.
Well, clearly, and give the Kochs credit, they have done some great things in Wichita. But in the political world, Nick, there's always room for straw people that the opponents can shoot at. These days for Republicans, it's a president, Barack Obama, and for Democrats, likewise, they have their straw people to shoot at, and that's Charles and David Koch. And there's a long history and tradition in American politics of having bad people, quote, quote, to shoot at when it comes to making your points in politics.
With George W. Bush no longer in the White House, have the Koch brothers now become the sort of target then for Democrats? Sure. That is the people they put on the mailings that they put out, the Koch brothers?
They are very convenient boogeymen. They're involved in oil. The company is privately held, so you can't really look too closely at where the finances go. And then there's AFP and all these other organizations that they fund, so it's very easy to create that straw man with sort of this octopus arms all over the place, touching many different things. And to summarize the world of big business and corporate influence and everyone else who's playing in American politics behind the scenes and put it on the Koch brothers is a relatively simple thing to do that people can understand.
Steve.
Well, and let's not forget, that the Republicans also have a boogeyman in George Soros, who does many of the same sorts of things that the Koch brothers do. They pours a lot of money into political races. And I think where the questions come up is how much influence do the Koch brothers have in politics? I have a piece out this week about a Republican legislator in Olathe who locked horns a bit with the Koch brothers and their lobbyist, and suddenly he doesn't get an endorsement from the Kansas Chamber, which is in very tight with the Koch brothers, which, who knows, maybe that could play into his re-election effort later on this year.
Dave.
I think the key to understanding Charles and David Koch, I used to work in Wichita, covered the Koch industries, presence in that community at some length. The key to understanding both of them is that they are ideological. They're not really that focused on specific legislation in this state or any other state. They do have a very close relationship, by the way, with Sam Brownback, probably a closer relationship with him than any other politician in the country. But by and large, they have a libertarian view that informs all of their politics, and they're extraordinarily wealthy, worth about $34 billion apiece. So they have the ability to influence discussions, not just here, but all over the country with that ideological libertarian bent. And that's what we ought to be paying attention to, probably more than specific interchanges with any one state or legislature.
Garrett.
And by the way, either the two brothers or the business entity seem to have noticed that they've become such a target. They've placed a massive television ad buy across Kansas. You can see their ads on my station and probably every other one in this market. Minute-long advertisements about We Are Koch, trying to correct what they might see as that sort of negative image, with lots of smiling, hardworking people in hard hats and aprons, working good American jobs, and trying to correct some of that imbalance, at least locally.
They've become one of Kansas City's most iconic symbols. 20 years ago this week, workers were busy assembling 18-foot-tall shuttlecocks so they could begin installing the massive works of public art on the expansive lawn of the Nelson. Trite, superficial, clutter, all words and worse used to describe the shuttlecocks upon their debut in 1994. This summer also marks the 20-year debut of another public art icon in the metro, the hair curlers on top of Bartle Hall, more officially termed the Sky Stations. They also were decried when they made their debut 20 years ago this year as part of the city's 1% for Arts program, weren't they, Steve?
Yes, they were. And just for the record, I'm a huge fan of the shuttlecocks. I think they transformed, just by themselves, an institution. They had this very foreboding, symmetrical appearance, and they've given a whole new image to that place that fits so well with Julian Zugasagoitia, the new director, a very welcoming guy. These are very welcoming symbols. I love them. Lots of folks don't, but I say keep them.
No, this is 20 years on. Have we been able to rival these icons since then?
I doubt it. I'll tell you the true story. I only moved here about 2 years ago, and the first picture I took in Kansas City was of the shuttlecocks. My now boss was driving me to the interview, and our station is right next door to the Nelson. And it was, I think there was snow on the ground, but it was a cold, wintry day, and there was these bright orange shuttlecocks on the lawn.
But people
and it
hated
just
them,
stuck out of my mind.
Well, there was some criticism of them, and there's always been criticism, Nick, as you know, of the 1% for Art program. It's a pretty high target for folks, particularly in times of austerity. The only art installation that might not rival them, but at least sort of rises to the same level as the shuttlecocks and the Sky Stations, are the video boards down at Sprint Center. They spent several $100,000, more than $1 million, I think, on those installations. Those don't seem quite as popular or as iconic or well-known in Kansas City, maybe, as Sky Stations or the shuttlecocks. But you also don't hear much criticism of the 1% for Art program anymore. I think people have come to understand it's an important part of the community and support
But is that because we haven't had such a controversial art being used?
Well, the Sprint
for the
Center
1%
ones
of the
are
art
pretty
program?
controversial. I mean, a lot of people are saying, boy, you're spending that kind of money just to show people flying through the air with trees and water around them. So I think, art is obviously in the eye of the beholder, and I think sometimes the most hated art. Remember all the controversy about the statue at the police department with the tie in the mouth and the briefcase?
Yes.
Public art is supposed to be controversial, but you do get the sense that Kansas Cityans have come to accept the idea of public money for public art if they still have some criticisms of specific installation.
Steve.
Well, in the Sprint Center art installation, Dave's right, it hasn't been as popular, and I feel like half the time I walk past it, you see pixels burned out on it. But the shuttlecocks have been constant, and I even see a lot of cars in my neighborhood that have the shuttlecock bumper sticker, all white shuttlecock on it, and I think it's just become part of the firmament.
But there is a Change.org petition to remove the shuttlecocks, and there's something called the curse of the shuttlecock, saying that since those shuttlecocks were installed in 1994, 20 years ago, there have been, the Royals and the Chiefs have basically plummeted in that period of time. There have been no playoff hopes since 1994. Everything was well until the shuttlecocks came in, and they need to be removed. And there is actually a petition on Change.org to remove them, Steve.
Well, there is, and our teams have lost so many games over so many years. You can blame all kinds of things that go well beyond the shuttlecock.
Could it be the Koch brothers, though?
You just want to blame bad baseball players and bad football players.
I, for example, have gained 200 pounds since the shuttlecocks were installed, and I blame that on the shuttlecocks. Had nothing to do with the ribs and French fries that I eat for lunch.
All righty. Should a dying person have the right to try a potentially life-saving drug, even if its effectiveness is unproven? Missouri may soon become one of the first states in the nation to let drug companies provide terminally ill patients with medications that are still being tested. The PBS NewsHour team was just in town delving into the issue for a report that airs this weekend. Here's a preview.
Let's try. Let's let a person be in charge of their life.
Patients in the U.S. can already try experimental drugs, but they need approval from the Federal Food and Drug Administration. Since 2009, the FDA says it has greenlit 99% of those applications.
The agency has a pathway. It seems to work quite well, and I'm not sure what the state right to try bills would really add to that.
But for Christina, struggling with a dire prognosis, government regulators have no place in her medical care.
If my doctor thinks this medication would help me in some way, then that's up to my doctor. That shouldn't be up to somebody that has no involvement in my care.
You can watch that full report, by the way, on PBS NewsHour Weekend this Saturday at 6 p.m. Garrett, you've actually been reporting on this. It's actually on the governor's desk. The legislature has passed this bill.
The legislature passed this with relatively little opposition. It went through, it sailed through committee on the back of very emotional testimony from the bill's sponsor, whose own daughter was someone who needed this kind of treatment and couldn't get it.
Well, we saw it in the piece.
That's exactly right. And the governor has not, to my knowledge, indicated either way whether or not he'll sign it, but the signs seem to be that he will. And one of the interesting open questions about this, and I haven't seen the full piece to know whether they get into this, is whether this could conceivably make Missouri a spot for medical tourism. In the same way that folks will go to Colorado to try medicinal marijuana products they can't get in other places, will people come here to try to use some of these non-approved investigational drugs that they may not get a chance to try anywhere else?
Okay, you can see again that full report at 6 p.m. Saturday on the PBS NewsHour Weekend Edition. Staying in Missouri now, for the first time since a botched execution in Oklahoma in April, Missouri resumed its death penalty this week. Early Wednesday, Missouri executed John Winfield for the 1996 shooting deaths of 2 women. Missouri's struggles to obtain drugs to carry out executions have been plagued by controversy and legal challenges. Now the Missouri Attorney General has proposed a solution. Missouri should make its own lethal injection drugs. Chris Costa says the legislature should appropriate the funds to establish a state-operated lab that can produce the execution chemicals for the state. Now, according to the Death Penalty Information Center, no state has their own laboratory. So is this idea being taken seriously, Steve?
I don't know, because it's, the details of it are so vague. This came out when Chris Costa was visiting with St. Louis Bar Association, I believe it was, when they were having a retreat out in the Ozarks. And he kind of tacked it on to the end of his speech. It almost seemed like an afterthought. So I don't know how serious he is about it. And I would imagine the legislature, given the cost of getting a DEA-approved lab in the state, would probably be even less keen on advancing something like this.
Garrett.
But his office did advise not only the speech, but that he had made this point. I mean, they intentionally drew attention to the fact that he was making this point. So whether that was for purely political reasons to sort of show him out there advancing the conversation, or whether they were trying to make a serious legislative introduction to this idea remains to be seen. But it wasn't accidental, and it certainly wasn't meant to be a throwaway.
The NAACP has just come out at the statewide level as doing the biggest campaign ever to try and abolish the death penalty in the state of Missouri. And obviously you've got a Democratic governor in the state of Missouri, but there's no effort to try and abolish the death penalty, or at least to put a stop to the death penalty in Missouri, Steve?
You know, there may be some efforts. There's always some talk about that, Nick, but it's not going to go very far, not in this very conservative legislature, and not with this governor, who's a former 4-term attorney general who has staked much of his career on the fact that he favors, the death penalty. I mean, whoever would have thought that killing people could be so complicated? Coster's proposal is at least a solution to what's become a very thorny problem, but are you really going to have a state legislature endorse the idea of funding a lab with the intention of manufacturing chemicals to kill people? It's really antithetical to so much of what we're all about.
But there's something to be said for the idea that it is sort of logically consistent in a certain way. If a state is going to engage in executions, own it from the get-go. It's not paving of sidewalks or some other sort of ancillary service that you can farm out to the private sector and say this is a good job creator. If you're going to say we believe that we should be killing our citizens for whatever reason, we should own it.
Dave.
I do think that Governor Nixon and Chris Koster are extraordinarily in danger of over-politicizing the death penalty in Missouri. Obviously, there are arguments for and against. But every time there's an execution in Missouri, Jay Nixon puts out a press release in which he explains why he's denying clemency for the condemned prisoner and then urges everyone to pray for the victims. It is not essential that he put out a press release every time there's an execution in the state. He does it in part to remind people he supports the death penalty. Chris Koster made this speech in an effort politically to remind people of his support for the death penalty. It seems to me the conversation is too important to let it be politicized that way on that side.
But that says, though, even as a Democrat, that there's huge amounts of support for the death penalty.
Right. In Missouri. Now, look at Kansas in contrast, which reinstated the death penalty, but has not used it in half a century. You get the sense that the politics are more complicated than either side admits. And yet there's this sort of default thing that in Missouri, it's, you've got to be for the death penalty and law and order and all those other things. I think there's a danger for both men if they over-politicize.
Well, Missouri has to figure this out pretty soon. There are more than 400 inmates on death row in the state of Missouri, Nick.
Over the last year or so, little free libraries have been sprouting up across the metro. The idea is simple. You construct a birdhouse-like box, put it in your front yard, fill it with some books. Then anyone who passes by is free to take one or add a new book to the little library. It's an informal thing that's meant to promote literacy and community. But in Leawood, the practice is being forbidden. In a story that's making now national news this week, the Collins family of Leawood is being told to remove their little wooden library by the city or else. The city says it runs against city codes that do not permit freestanding structures. But rules are rules, right, Garrett?
This is the sort of thing that makes critics of Johnson County want to bang their heads into walls. I mean, you've got something that gets people excited about reading, but it is an eyesore to a couple of people, perhaps just one person in the neighborhood. Yes, rules are rules, but there ought to be some room for discussion about reasonable application of those
But this
rules.
may be the camel's nose under the tent, so to speak. The city argues they're not targeting the little wooden library. Leawood Director of Community Development, Richard Coleman, Steve, says it applies to any structure. You couldn't put a bookcase out there or a couch out there.
Yeah. And this is the kind of issue that hits the absolute sweet spot for a municipality, a good cause versus a set of rules, and this is right down the middle. In our little community of Westwood, we're having a little tiff over signage, and I sort of can sympathize a little bit with the city here because there are rules that need to apply to everybody. You grant one set of exceptions, and these things sprout up, and but some folks aren't going to like it.
Yeah, we would have anarchy if everybody was doing this, wouldn't we, Steve?
Well,
It's everywhere.
Yeah, certainly, but at the same time, I mean, it's children, it's books. It's almost too bad because Leawood, which had just gotten some plaudits from some corners for their very reasonable decision to tell Hy-Vee no to special benefits to do interior improvements, then 2-3 weeks later comes out with this and gets their image tarnished.
Maybe they could put the library in the Hy-Vee, which is now empty, and just put all those books in there. Maybe that would work as well. 25 years ago, Nick, Overland Park got into a bit of a problem because its zoning regulations required the White Castle restaurant to be painted beige. You may remember that controversy, which went international very quickly. Overland Park reversed itself. My guess guess is that there's some people in Leawood who are trying to think of a way to make everyone happy in this controversy and get them off the front page.
Well, speaking of obeying the rules, with streetcars getting ready to launch next year downtown, the city announced new beefed-up parking regulations this week, and the council is weighing up stringent rules for streetcar passengers as well. One thing looks certain: you won't be able to eat or drink on the cars, and with concern that the free vehicles will encourage undesirables, there will be no selling or begging on the streetcars, and according to one section of a proposed ordinance, it'll be unlawful for any person to loiter or loaf, and it'll be an offence to climb through windows or upon the seats or otherwise annoy passengers or employees therein. Is the council already getting concerned about what many people will actually happen once the streetcars start operating, Steve?
Yes, they are, and the timing here is interesting, Nick. They're bringing out these rules prior to the votes
more than a year.
in August and in November, so they want to nip this in the bud. There is some concern in the community that these streetcars could be abused, so they want to set the rules and the parameters out before anyone goes to vote. Everyone's aware now these rules are in place. It might help passage.
Will you be able to read a book on the streetcar?
Quietly. I have looked into my crystal ball here, and all of these things will happen on the streetcar. People will eat, they will play loud music, and they will climb on the seats. It's probably a good idea to get these rules out there beforehand, but I will say one thing. You want to know what people hate? Parking tickets. And if the parking crackdown downtown is as hardcore as the laws lay out, you might turn people off on this.
And that is our Week in Review. Our thanks to our news reviewers, should I say, putting my teeth back in, keeping you up to date weekday mornings at 11 on KCUR-FM. Steve Kraske, listen to him weekday mornings at 11, informing you of important news on both sides of state line. At the pitch, Steve Vokrot. From your Kansas City Star, Dave Hellings. And whenever news breaks at 41 Action News, Garrett Hake. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.